Kim.
Hi, this is Shauna.
Hi, this is Kay. This is the Thriving LDS Singles Sisters Podcast. Hi, everybody, and welcome to the LDS Singles, Thriving LDS Singles, in fact. And we have Kim, Kay, and Shauna here. And today we're interviewing Chelsea. Hi, everybody. It's good to have you all here. Chelsea helps Christ seekers who wonder if there is a place for them to embrace their unique ways of loving and living the gospel of Jesus Christ, enabling them to see they are enough for and useful to God exactly as they are right now. Chelsea has been a religious speaker, teacher, and writer for nearly 2 decades and has presented to audience in every corner of the country. That's the USA country.
That would be the USA country.
She champions those who don't feel like they fit the ideal mold because she's lived it. She's a mental illness warrior, abuse and addiction survivor, and a divorced single mother with a modern family consisting of herself, 3 children, a gay former husband, his partner, and a dog. Chelsea is a fitness instructor and eats everything crust first. Okay. That sounds good. Welcome, Chelsea. We're really happy to have you here as part of our podcast. And it's
thank you.
We really like interviewing people that don't fit the mold, because that's exactly what we feel, that there are so many people in the church that don't fit the mold, and they all feel like they're the only ones. And what we're showing is, no, actually, you're more the majority than the minority. But your story is just a little bit extra unique. So tell us your story.
The single part of my story, I'll tell you that part. I was married for 13 years, and my husband at the time came out to me as gay. I was totally floored. People judge me for that, but honestly, I had no idea. He did a really good job of hiding it from himself because he didn't want to know. He had known his whole life. And we decided we were going to try to make it work. We did everything that we could. We did therapy and more therapy and prayed and fasted and worked. And over time, it got worse and harder for us to be married. It was destroying our family. And our couples therapist kept saying, okay, you've done everything. The last thing that you haven't tested is getting divorced. And I said, no, I'm not going to do that. I've made a covenant and I will just put my head down. I will grit my teeth. I will live through hell for the rest of this life until I get to the other side, and then it will be fine. And one day, I asked my, at the time, husband, okay, when we die, do you want to be with me? Would you want to be in the celestial kingdom with me? And he said, honestly, and at this time, he didn't really, had stopped believing in the church anyway. He said, even if I did believe it, I would choose to be authentic to myself. And that means I would choose to not be with you. And you deserve to be with someone who chooses you. And that was this moment that I realized, okay, I'm not at all being chosen. I don't want to keep choosing someone that's not choosing me. And it, like I said, it was destroying our whole family. We had 3 young kids at the time. And so right before our 15th wedding anniversary, we got divorced. This was all during COVID. So it was a big surprise to our ward members. It was a surprise to our families. I remember showing up at church the first week and after COVID, and everyone else was like, oh, so much has happened in our lives. We haven't seen each other for so long. And I remember sitting there thinking, I have no idea what to do. Do I stand up and make an announcement over the pulpit? Just so you all know, we got divorced because everyone thought we were this perfectly happy couple that nothing ever went wrong for, and which absolutely wasn't true in the first place. But it was, getting divorced was challenging, but it saved our family. We continued to do therapy to divorce well. So we are able to have a good relationship now as co-parents and have been able to remain friends, which I understand is very unique, and not everyone has that luxury, and I'm very fortunate for that. But he has left the church, so we're still raising our kids in a mixed faith marriage. I don't even think is appropriate because he's a non-faith person, which is challenging. My kids don't want to have anything to do with a church that they feel like doesn't love their dad, And it's easier to want to go be with dad on Sundays than to be with mom because mom makes them go to church. So it's added a lot of challenges to my life that I hadn't anticipated. But it is also probably the most life-changing, life-growing thing that I've ever done. It has shaped me to be more compassionate than I ever imagined that I could be, to be able to really sit in a space with someone else and try to see things from their perspective and to give grace and empathy and a lack of judgment. It's really changed the way that I see everything. So in that way, I would do it all again. It's hard to say that, but I can't imagine going back to who I was before when everything just seemed so easy and black and white. It just isn't. And I'm glad that I understand so much more about God and about the gospel and about the atonement than I ever did before. That's a nutshell.
Yeah, no, thank you. That's great. I know that feeling. My youngest daughter has come out as gay, and it's you think you know the gospel and then you have to reevaluate your thoughts and feelings, and it gives you a much deeper understanding of everything, particularly atonement, I guess. But yeah, all of it.
Absolutely.
And I think it makes us much better people. But
I think it can. It can, but it doesn't. Like, some people are faced with whether it's this kind of irreconcilable or there are other irreconcilable things in the gospel. And sometimes it can make them bitter or more rigid. And for me, luckily, I was able to let it help me be more flexible. It didn't have to pull me away from the church, even though I went through some majorly faith testing experiences for several years because I was having not only anti-Mormon literature, but anti-Christian, anti-God, everything that you can think of being thrown at me constantly. And it was during COVID. I didn't get to talk to other people. I wasn't able to go to the temple. I wasn't able to have any kind of support group. Nobody in my family or his family at the time knew that we were going through this because we were trying to work through it on our own first. And I was in a really dark place spiritually, trying to not be. But one of the things that I've learned is that it's okay to have irreconcilable things. We don't have to understand it all. We don't have all of God's truth right now. And so we can take something that would potentially be a faith crisis that would lead us to a faith transition out of the faith. I like to see that as my faith transformation. It didn't take me out of the faith, but it transformed my faith so that it is very different than it used to be. I see God very differently. I see the commandments very differently. And I can hold space for the fact that I don't understand everything, but I can still love everyone. And I'm not saying this to toot my own horn or say that I'm like better than other people, but I know that there is a choice. I remember the moment that I had to make a choice to either let it make me bitter or better. And in some ways I wanted to choose the bitter because I wanted justice. I wanted someone else to have to feel as bad as how they were making me feel. But I'm so glad that God helped me to choose to be better through all of this.
Yeah.
I think it's a really good summary of what that the faith crises do. They take us right to that edge, and we have a choice to make.
Yeah.
Yep.
And I love your one-liner of is it going to make me bitter or better? That's really powerful. There's so many parts
honestly,
of your story that just touch my heart so much. It's so amazing.
I feel like there's a lot to my story. I found a lot of people who are in mixed orientation marriages or their spouse has left the church or whatever, things that are the same. But something that I have learned about all of us, singles, even non-singles, but we all have this understanding of certain things like loss, that we just get it. You all don't have to have gone through the same experience as me for your singleness, but we understand that loss of dreams and promises and hopes and trust and all of those things. We understand that. And I think there's something really powerful about uniting together and helping each other feel that. Like Kay was saying, sometimes we feel like we are the only ones, even though we're the majority. Everyone feels like they don't belong in some way, shape, or form. Everyone. No one fits the mold exactly.
Yeah.
But yet we all feel like we're the only one. And so the more we can talk about it and bring it to the surface and have conversations about it, the more normal it becomes.
Yeah.
I feel like what you said about we all go through a different experience, but it causes the same feeling. Like the same result as the loss of dreams. Mine was a completely different situation, but I was so embarrassed. And so, because like yours, it was a surprise to everyone. I had kept it to myself, so they didn't know I was being beat up, they just didn't know until it was over. And it was just like a shock to everyone. And it was just, I kept thinking I could fix it.
Yeah.
I can make this work. It'll be okay. And then it was just heartbreaking.
I think you make a really good point, Shauna, about it's good for us to have a support system. I am not at all saying we shouldn't have a support system, but we don't always want to air all of our dirty laundry to ward members, especially if we feel like I want to keep the air clean right now. What if things change or and sometimes I feel like people can be really judgmental on the outside when they're like, oh, your marriage was perfect. For example, my former husband had taken me for it was supposed to be for our 10th wedding anniversary. We went on our 12th anniversary to France and Italy. And everyone in my ward was like, oh, you guys are just the best. You are the cutest couple. It is amazing that he planned this for you. This is #relationship goals. Everyone was so amazed by it. And little did they know we were trying to save a marriage. I didn't realize he was gay and that's why our marriage was awful. That wasn't, we had a lot of things that were going on, but that was kind of the fire beneath all of it. And they didn't realize that. And so sometimes when people would first find out that we were getting divorced, there was a lot of judgment there because they hadn't seen all the behind the scenes pictures and things that had happened that were so painful, and feel like you're facing judgment from people when you really just need a safe space. It's really scary. And fortunately, in my case, I didn't have a ton of that directed at me, but I felt a lot of it directed at my, at the time, husband. Before we got divorced, like people were like, oh, you're such a terrible person. And then I was like, nope, he's not. He's not. He just has different issues than you do. But people want to have someone to blame. They want to be able to take your side or take their side. And that can be really tricky in a ward situation.
I think that's tricky in any situation, not just in your ward, in your family, in your neighborhood, in just, it was really so like you. I had just done me and my family had just done all the advertising for the Southtown Mall. So our posters were everywhere of this perfect family. They sent out this big crew from back east to take our pictures. And every week they would change the posters in the bowling center and all through the mall. And in the newspaper came new pictures of this perfect family. And then Father's Day, they had sent out one where they're doing the football, and I had to call them and say, hey, he just went to prison for trying to kill me and my kids. We're everywhere. It's just crazy.
That sounds mortifying. It just adds
it was
extra complexity to something that's already complex and painful.
So humiliating.
Yeah.
So the whole world knew that I was amazing family. And then the whole world knew. It's so hard. I think that is a big part. It's hard to face all that. Yes, at church too, but I'm sorry you had to go through that.
Yeah. One thing you said, because you were talking about it being COVID and about not being able to really talk with anyone or have a support system. And I know that's definitely one thing that I felt is there's this period of time where you really don't want people to know because you're still trying to make things work. And yet you're in the depths of just pain and heartbreak and trying to figure things out. And I remember when I first decided, you know what, I need some help. Actually, it was really my therapist that decided you need to talk to other people, Kim. And so,
good therapist.
So I was like, okay, I'm going to tell my parents. And of course, they were just very loving and supportive. And I show up on their back door one day in tears. And then they ended up going through the ringer with me. Oh, everything's good. No, everything's terrible. Oh, everything's going to be okay. Nope, we're not going to make it. And through it all, they were always just giving love to both, wanting me to be the happiest and trying to make things work. But it was a huge relief, actually, to be able to share and to talk to somebody and have somebody. And the same is, so one of my big things is building that tribe of people that you really feel safe, your trusted tribe that you can go to. And Shauna and Kay are part of that. For me, is my trusted tribe of, okay, I can air my dirty laundry with you guys and feel safe about it and know that we can talk through stuff. And I can't stress enough how important that was, but I wonder, at least to me, but I wonder what your thoughts on that were and how you felt once you were able to really talk to people.
Okay, so for me, I felt like my ex coming out of the closet put me into a closet because he wasn't ready for me to tell everyone. And there had been lots of things besides just him coming out that came out at that point that I didn't know was going to happen with our relationship, but I felt like it was constantly weighing on me and I couldn't talk to anyone. Trying to put on a brave face, trying to make myself look happy, to not have people ask questions. And honestly, even though there are family members that still won't talk to us because we chose to get divorced, and they judgmentally and incorrectly believe that we've broken our covenants. I've broken no covenants by getting divorced, but the fact that they won't talk to us is really painful. But I would take a few people's judgment over having to be alone any day. Being able to talk to people. And I finally did start using things like Marco Polo. I reached out to a couple people that I knew would be safe spaces for both me and my ex-husband, so that it wouldn't be people that were just going to jump on a bandwagon against him. And over time, I expanded that, and it really was revolutionary to feel like I wasn't carrying it alone. And it wasn't that other people were carrying it for me, but just feeling like I had people who knew, people that I could show up in tears and they wouldn't even have to ask why. I wouldn't have to try to cover it up. I could just be. It was so important to me.
Yeah.
Was there a point that somebody said to you, I know how you feel? That had gone through it? Was there ever someone that came to you with that?
That didn't happen till quite a bit later. What I did find was that very early on, I had people find out my story and they would contact me and say, I think the same thing is happening to me. My husband just told me that he's gay, or my dad, I've never told anyone this, but my dad was gay and I just needed somebody to talk to, or someone I can't tell you how many people just in that first couple of months reached out to me and said, can you be my safe space? And I was glad because I didn't feel like I had that safe space. And I thought, you know what, if God can use this to help somebody else, it makes it feel like it's all worth it, because it wasn't just misery for me. It had a purpose behind it in a way.
Yeah.
So it was a long time before I felt like I had somebody that said, yeah, I've been there.
One of the other things reminds me of that Shauna used to tell me, and I think she even has some stories about this in her own personal experience of, usually the people that are in your family, they know you think you're hiding it really well, the struggles that you're going through, but it's to the people that are close to you, they are wondering what's going on. And I know Shauna had that experience too. I don't know if she wants to share more about that, but
I had, and I'm sure you had this too, I had been not telling anyone. And my sister, is that the one you're referring to, Kim? So I always took care of everyone. I'm the oldest. We had always done well financially. I took care of all of them. So now I'm in this spot where I'm still trying to put on the charade that I'm still amazing and normal. I'm down to 85, 89 pounds. You can tell there's a different kind of weight loss with things like that. But I had gone to see my sister, and she was in the Navy. And my brother-in-law's in the Navy. They have 5 little kids. and they're the poorest ones. So they've got this little teeny tiny, straight up and down, like barrack home with 5 kids and 2 of them. So I went there to stay the weekend, and I've got my 6 kids, and we go down to the beach on the what is it called? Not the reserve, the base. Yeah, we go down there and we just have a ball, and I'm just like so happy to be there. It was like, but always something weighing on the back of my mind because I don't know what I'm going to do. We're dying. I'm dying. So now it's time to go. So my little sister and her husband call me up to their bedroom, and they're like, we can tell something's wrong. You don't have to tell us, but we can tell something's wrong. And we want you to know that you and your kids can come and live with us, and we'll take care of you. And I was like, oh, there would be no possible way that 11 children and 3 adults could live in this little 3-bedroom straight up and down. But you know what? It saved me, because I was like, I didn't know, my mom and dad were not an option. So I had nowhere to turn, and I was trapped. But when she said that, it was like, I didn't tell them what was happening. I just was like, thank you, and left, because I'm still trying to protect what might be fixed. But it literally saved me. I had an option.
Yeah.
Now that's good. I've actually got a story that's the opposite. And so just for everybody who's got an opposite story, we were the perfect family. So this is my first marriage. We were considered the perfect church family. And it wasn't. It was falling to bits from pretty well day one. But it looked good on the outside. And so when I said I want out, I was the bad guy. And I wasn't just the bad guy at church. Like, I literally had people that refused to let their children come and play with my 4-year-old, like, because I obviously wasn't a good person. And I had people cross the street so they wouldn't have to talk to me. My grandmother actually supported him and wrote me out of her will. And he went and lived with her for a few months before he found a house. Yeah, so I had no support. Absolutely zero support. And yeah, that was hard, as you can imagine. But it's also the time where I got a revelation. Like, I remember sitting in this, I can still remember the feeling. I was in this chair. He'd taken most of the furniture, and a friend had lent me this rocking chair. It was actually a really nice chair. And I was sitting in that chair just crying. And I heard this voice where God said, I love you no matter what. And I'm like, yeah, and that's God's love. And it didn't matter, like, it didn't make it day to day easier, but God still loved me. And I had one person that I could turn to, at least I had him. And he was still there, and he was very clear that he hadn't left me. Whereas the church was actually quite judgmental and quite negative. And I actually ended up leaving the church. I'll stuff you all. And it's like, that's the way.
I think that the church might not, especially back in when we went through this, Kay, but I think that people aren't equipped or trained, or they don't know how to act. It's like when my sister's baby died, nobody knew what to say to her, and they pretty much all said the wrong thing. And that's how, in our time, what do they say? And you were probably keeping it a secret like we were, right? Keeping it a secret because we're embarrassed and we're going to fix it. So then it's a surprise, and you look like, really? You're not even going to work on it? They don't know. People, and sometimes the spouse is a little more manipulative. I don't know. They say, for me, I don't know, maybe not in your case, but I know that's true with mine. I know it's true with Kim. They felt like they made themselves look like the victim. Was that true in your case?
Yes. And I think what you were saying, Chelsea, is that people felt they had to choose sides.
Yeah.
And I guess the message is you don't. We're both still children. We're both still trying to do the best we can. And we're both hurting. And you don't have to choose sides. But yeah, at a church, we were in probably a fairly small ward, and people felt they had to choose sides. And
Yeah.
And I think, as you were saying, Chelsea, that judgment of you've broken the covenants, and that was seen as you obviously are bad because you've done this. Yeah. So the big message I would say is don't judge. You have no idea what's going on. You have absolutely no idea. And yeah, we had tried for, I would say, 5 years before that with counseling.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
stuff. It wasn't a spur of the moment.
It seems spur of the moment to them. So they feel like,
Yeah.
well, you're just doing this on a whim, when you're like, no, years have gone into this. I can't tell you how many people said to me things like, really? Did you work on it long enough? Yeah, I did.
Yeah.
How do you know you're supposed to get divorced? Because God told me that's what I was supposed to do. God wouldn't say that. I hated that answer.
Yeah.
Well, he did. And
It's
yes,
not
he
true.
does. In fact, some
Mhm.
people would say, I'm so sorry you got divorced. And I realized for the first time, there are a lot of people, a lot of us who've been divorced, who are thinking, this was the best thing that ever happened to me.
Yeah.
I'm not sorry I got divorced. I'm finally able to heal from a lot, years and years of pain
Yeah.
now. So there's just,
Right.
like Shauna's saying, people don't know what to say and they can only see it from their perspective. And so I have grace for that. It's okay. But there are things that I've learned that I was like, oh yeah, I used to think that.
I say that.
I used to say those types of things. I don't say those anymore.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's so
We
true.
do. We have to repent of all the things that we used to do.
I know.
Right?
Oh, they taste terrible when we have to re-eat them. I hate that taste.
Yes.
That's one of the other things you mentioned is the judging. You can't not judge when people say don't judge, because we're judging if something's good just as much as we're judging if something's bad. And we have to judge. We have to use our own discernment. That's part of being here on earth. But I think the key is to give people the benefit of the doubt. And that's really hard, is to come from a place of they're doing their best and give them the benefit of the doubt and come from that space of judgment instead of they made a wrong decision. And I experienced that too, even with my adult kids that weren't home. Are you sure you tried? And did you try hard enough? And so that is a big question. That's a hard one.
That's really powerful, though, to approach it that way, of giving people that benefit of the doubt, assuming that they have done everything that they could, instead of assuming that clearly there are more things you can do. Have you prayed?
Just giving up. They just gave up. Have you prayed?
Did you fast about this, Chelsea?
Only 600,000 prayers.
Anyone who knows me would know I do those things. But
Join us for part 2 of Chelsea's interview.